Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Thank you very much. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 4, text number 8. This is the fourth verse among 5 verses which explain specific features of Krishna's appearances. This one speaks of the purpose for which he comes, for which he incarnates or appears. If you remember, the first one spoke of Krishna's memory being infallible. Second one spoke of how Krishna's appearances are spiritual in nature, they're not material. And the third one spoke of why and when he comes. Yada yada he comes. And the fifth one after this speaks of the benefit to us of knowing these 4 verses properly. Now this one speaks of the fact that Krishna comes to protect his devotees, to destroy the demonic and to re-establish religious principles. So that's what's the purpose. That's the purpose for which he incarnates. 3 purposes. To protect his devotees, to destroy the demonic and re-establish religious principles. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sanstapana arthaya sambhavani yuge yuge. So the first purpose is Paritranaya, Tranaya, same root as Trayate, mantra, Trayate, to free one's mind. So to free the sadhu, to deliver, to protect, Vinashaya, to annihilate the Duskrita, the miscreants. And the third function, Dharma Sanstapana Arthaya, for the sake of establishing sanstapana, re-establishing dharma. So sambhavami, that's the purpose why I appear yuga yuga, again and again, in one millennium and another. There's an interesting Sanskrit slight nuanced meaning to the word sambhavami. Sambhavami means I appear, but it also has the same root as sambhava. Sambhava means to make something possible. So Krishna makes it possible to protect his devotees, to annihilate miscreants, and to establish religious principles. So he makes it possible. In the case of Sambhavami, he does it by appearing, and Sambhav means he makes it possible by some means or other. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada first of all goes into a definition of what is a sadhu and a duskriti. Because if we don't know who's a sadhu, we don't know who's protected. And if we don't know who's a Duskriti, we don't know who is annihilated. And we might actually misunderstand. And it is always nice reading Prabhupada's books not to assume that you know what those words mean, because he usually gives a very perfect definition. According to Bhagavad Gita, a sadhu, holy man, is a man in Krishna consciousness. That is a sadhu, man in Krishna consciousness. A person may appear to be irreligious, but if he has the qualifications of Krishna consciousness wholly and fully, he is to be understood to be a sadhu. So we of course have our own idea of a sadhu. Usually a person in a certain dress and a certain color of dress, saffron, we think that's a sadhu. And sometimes we think he's a sadhu no matter what he does. So, but actually it's very much to do with his consciousness. And even if he otherwise appears to be irreligious, but he is in this consciousness is God conscious, Krishna conscious. He is a sadhu. So that means there's two cases in which a sadhu is not a sadhu. When he simply professes to be one. Because how difficult is it to profess to be a sadhu? That's not difficult. So it's actually a qualification. It's almost like saying, I profess to be a nuclear scientist. You may say it, but you have to be able to do something in nuclear science. So then one may have the reputation of being a sadhu, but that's also not enough. In other words, sometimes, it's like marketing. You can market something. Just like that famous incident of marketing a cigarette as cool. The name, for those who are not familiar with America, there's a brand name with the word KOOL, meaning it's also cool, COOL, as in very fashionable and also very cooling, perhaps. But it's fire. Smoke is fire. You're smoking. So that's marketing. So one can have a reputation of being a sadhu, one can profess to be a sadhu, but if he doesn't actually have the qualification of being Krishna conscious, he's not a sadhu. So the state of consciousness is the most important criteria, only criteria. All other criteria being very superfluous. Whether those criteria are favorable or unfavorable. In other words, one may still be a sadhu even if you think he's not a sadhu. For example, who is a sadhu in the Bhagavad Gita? Arjuna. Arjuna is a sadhu. Now, looking at him with a bow and arrow, you may not think that's a sadhu. But Krishna says, I come to protect him. He comes to protect him to such an extent, he becomes his charioteer. I mean, we're not talking about just, what is that, IT, when they send it to India, what do they call it? Offshore, no, not offshore. Delegating, what's the word? Skipping my mind. ISKCON. So when they send all their IT work to India, there's a word anyway. You're not all helping either, but anyway. Huh? No, it's okay. It's partly to catch your attentiveness, but partly also I'm skipping. Okay, so you can't delegate. What's the word? You can't send it abroad. You can't send it to China to be done. You can't send it to India to be done. Huh? Anyways, it's such a common word. It's foolish actually. Okay, so the point is, Krishna doesn't get somebody else to protect his people. He does it. And that sadhu is Arjuna.
Proxy?
Huh? No. When the companies do the IT work for American companies, offshore, there's another word.
Outsource.
Huh?
Outsource.
Thank you. Outsource. Outsource. So Krishna is not outsourcing the job of protecting his devotee. He is doing it. Now you can see it's a good word, isn't it? It's actually a good word. Thank you. Somebody's awake to that. Okay, so Krishna is not outsourcing. He is personally protecting his devotee. And that sadhu is Arjuna, not a saffron-dressed person. So, Prabhupada points out that he may even appear to be irreligious. For example, a soldier is not considered religious, but he's a sadhu. Okay. I know we're belaboring a very small point, but it was important. Now, Prabhupada comes to defining the word duskriti. So first was sadhu, now duskriti. Duskriti applies to those who do not care for Krishna consciousness. So that's the exact opposite. The criteria is Krishna consciousness. Okay. Such miscreants, Prabhupada then says that even if they are decorated with mundane education, that's another, Prabhupada is refuting some of our preconceived notions. One of them is that we think a person must be saintly if he's very educated, he's very learned, he's very eloquent, he speaks, but he may speak all nonsense, but we think he's eloquent, therefore he's somewhat saintly. But no, he's a duskriti because of a lack of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada again says, whereas a person who is 100% engaged in Krishna consciousness is accepted as a sadhu, even though such a person may be neither learned nor well cultured. So that's, and it's not just Prabhupada's definition, that's the point. It's Krishna's definition. It's one thing to say, okay, you're a sectarian, you're a sect who believe that. But the person who is deciding who to protect and who to annihilate, that's his criteria. Because again, you go back. Who is he protecting? He's protecting Arjuna. Who is he annihilating? He's annihilating Duryodhana and the party. So we have to understand. What's the difference? The difference is one is a devotee of Krishna and the other one is not. Now, so Prabhupada speaks of this protection and destruction and how he does it. As far as the atheists are concerned, it is not necessary for the Supreme Lord to appear as he is. So now, Krishna does outsource the annihilation. You see, this is amazing. He will not outsource the protection, but he'll outsource the annihilation. It is not necessary for the Supreme Lord to appear as he is to destroy them, as he did with the demons Ravana and Kamsa. So sometimes we also expect, why doesn't God come and destroy my enemy? See, we think another definition of sadhu is somebody who's my friend, and duskriti is one who's my enemy. I am the criteria. In one sense, this is a very good criteria. But instead of the I, it's Krishna. One who is a friend to Krishna is sadhu. One who is an enemy of Krishna is duskriti. But of course, in the material perverted sense, we put ourselves in place of Krishna. But that's our conviction. My friend, protection, and my enemy should be destroyed. The Lord has many agents who are quite competent to vanquish demons. But the Lord especially descends to appease his unalloyed devotees, who are always harassed by the demonic. Now, there's a number of features of this appeasing the devotees. It's not just from physical harm. as we learn. So, although Prahlad Maharaj was the son of Hiranyakashipu, he was nonetheless persecuted by his father. Although Devaki, the mother of Krishna, was the sister of Kansa, she and her husband Vasudeva were persecuted only because Krishna was to be born of them. So you can see here the fault of these sadhus was they were devotees of Krishna. That's it. And even though they were intimately connected with a demon, in the case of Prahlad Maharaj, he is the son of a demon. In the case of Devaki, she is the sister of a demon. But one is a sadhu, one is a dusri. So the criteria was, Prabhupada is establishing the criteria is Krishna, not some other vague idea. So Lord Krishna appeared primarily to deliver Devaki rather than kill Kansa, but both were performed simultaneously. Therefore it is said here that to deliver the devotee and vanquish the demon miscreants, the Lord appears in different incarnations. So now you know. If you want to be delivered, protected, you have to be a devotee of Krishna. And if you want to be annihilated, and it may not be annihilated by Krishna, but one of his outsourced agents, right? Like we learned today's class, the person who annihilated the dacoits were not even Mother Kali, but the witches. So no benefit. I mean, like you get some benefit if you were killed by Krishna or even one of his agents like Kali, there may be some benefit. But no, some witches, some horrible, killed by them. So outsourced killing is not good. All because we're not a devotee of Krishna. So now Srila Prabhupada quotes from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which explains Sambhavami, how Krishna and why he comes. Srishti hetu yai murti prapanche avatare, sai ishvara murti avatara namatare, mayatita paravyome sabara avasthana, vishve avatari dare Avatara Nama. The avatar or incarnation of Godhead descends from the kingdom of God for material manifestation. And the particular form of the personality of Godhead who so descends is called an incarnation or avatar. Such incarnations are situated in the spiritual world, the kingdom of God. When they descend to the material creation, they assume the name avatar. So now Prabhupada is explaining the word avatar. He's explained sadhu, duskriti, and now avatar. Or sambhavami. It's to do with the word sambhavami. So avatar is not the unmanifest becoming manifest, which is the impersonalist view. This is the Supreme Lord who exists in his abode decides to descend. Avatar means to descend. That means he was already there. And then Sambhavami, he appears. There are various kinds of avatars. So Prabhupada lists 6 kinds of avatars. Now if you read the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, these 6 avatars are mentioned in great length and explained. There are various kinds of avatars such as Purusha avatars, Guna avatars, Leela avatars, Shakti Avesh avatars, Manavantra avatars, and Yuga avatars. All appearing on schedule all over the universe. So Yuga, Sambhavami, Yuga, Yuga. Yuga means on a certain time scale. So Purusha avatars refers to the 3 Vishnus. Karanadakshay, Garbhodakshay and Kshirodakshay. And the Guna avatars refers to the lords of the three modes of nature, of goodness, Lord Vishnu, of passion, Lord Brahma, of ignorance, Lord Shiva. And then the Leela avatars, when the Lord performs his pastimes, as in Lord Krishna, as in Lord Ramachandra. Shakti Avesh avatars, those who are empowered by the Lord, such as Lord Buddha and so on. Manavantra avatars, like Lord Manu, who is the father of mankind in one period of time of Lord Brahma. Then the Yuga avatars, Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga. Each Yuga has one special avatar. So of course for Kali Yuga is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Lord Krishna is the primeval Lord, the fountainhead of all avatars. So he is technically called Avatari. Lord Shri Krishna descends for the specific purpose of mitigating the anxieties of the pure devotees. So out of all these 6 kinds of avatars, Krishna especially comes for the first line, Paritranaya Sadhuna, the part where he doesn't outsource, right? He doesn't delegate to somebody else. He does it himself. He does it to mitigate the devotee. The pure devotee is not anxious for his physical protection. He is anxious to be sambhoga, to be united with Krishna. So Prabhupada says, who are very anxious to see him in his original Vrindavan pastimes. Therefore, the prime purpose of the Krishna avatar is to satisfy his unalloyed devotees. Now, Prabhupada moves on to Lord Chaitanya. The Lord says that he incarnates himself in every millennium. This indicates that he incarnates also in the age of Kali. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the incarnation in the age of Kali is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who spread the worship of Krishna by the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting of the holy names, and spread Krishna consciousness throughout India. He predicted this incarnation, this appearance of the Lord, that this culture of Sankirtan will be broadcast all over the world, from town to town and village to village. Lord Chaitanya is the incarnation of Krishna. The personality of Godhead is described secretly. Lord Chaitanya as the incarnation of Krishna is described secretly, not directly, in the confidential parts of the revealed scriptures such as Upanishads, Mahabharata and Bhagavatam. The devotees of Lord Krishna are very much attracted by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. This avatar of the Lord does not kill the miscreants, but delivers them by his causeless mercy. So the final point of this purport is that the sadhu would be, today in Kali Yuga, would be a person who is attracted to Sankirtan. So that's the definition. A sadhu and a miscreant. One who is attracted to Sankirtan, one who is not. So in this particular day and age, it takes that form. And then the Lord manifests himself to the person attracted to Sankirtan. Now Srila Prabhupada has a very nice purport. In this, not purport, I have a reference from teachings of Queen Kunti. And in this reference, Prabhupada, he elaborates on this theme of delivering the devotee. The Lord comes to deliver, Prabhupada speaks in the teaching of Queen Kunti, chapter 12. The Lord comes to deliver the devotees, Paritranaya Sadhuna. But it is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 26, that a devotee transcends the material qualities. Sadhunan Samati, he transcends. So he doesn't need to be delivered from material world. A devotee is in a transcendental position because he is no longer under the control of the 3 material modes of nature, goodness, passion and ignorance. If a sadhu is already delivered, being on the transcendental platform, then where is the necessity of delivering him? this question may arise. So the Lord comes to deliver the devotee, but the devotee is already delivered. So Prabhupada makes 2 points. Therefore, the word vidambana, meaning bewildering, is used in this verse because this appears contradictory. So the second point is, the answer to this contradiction is that a sadhu, a devotee, does not require deliverance, but because he is very much anxious to see the Lord face to face, Krishna therefore comes to satisfy the devotee's desire. And then in a lecture in Bombay in 1974, he speaks about the annihilation aspect. Vinashaya means for annihilating, for killing. It is also good for a person to be killed by Krishna in order to dissipate his ignorance. So now he's going to speak of annihilating ignorance. Ignorance means not to know the value of life. Therefore Krishna kills ignorance and gives real knowledge. That is also Vinashaya. So the Bhagavad Gita is continuing for 2 reasons. One is to give relief to the sadhu, to the devotee, and the other is to kill ignorance, or personally kill the duskritina. So here Prabhupada is saying, Krishna is coming in the form of Bhagavad Gita. Right? And he's doing the same thing. He is delivering the devotee because the devotee finds relief by reading the Bhagavad Gita. And the duskriti, his ignorance is killed by reading the Bhagavad Gita. His misunderstanding. And then he says that, yet Krishna has affection for both. Just like the father or mother loves one child and chastises the other. The result is the same affection. There is no jealousy. Suppose one child is diseased, another child is healthy. The healthy child is being supplied with nice foodstuff, and the diseased child is refused the same food. It is not that the mother is unkind to the child. She is very kind and loving. So Krishna's killing and Krishna's supporting is the same. There is affection. So, very nice. When you can have a fuller understanding of the verse, it's very comprehensive. It's very complete. It's very satisfying. Ye Atma Suprasidati. It's very fulfilling because all your anxieties are pacified. It's very wholesome to know that even Krishna's killing is benign. It's not vicious. It's not, like symptomatic of an angry person. Vengeance. You go to hell and burn. Ha ha ha. No. That's a misconception of God. This is God. And this is the next verse. That if you understand God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, properly, you'll be delivered. In other words, we have a foolish conception of God, and therefore we are bound to this cycle of repeated birth and death. So, chapter 4, text 9. This is the 5th verse of the 5 verses that explain Krishna's appearances, special features of Krishna's appearances. And this one speaks of the benefit to us of knowing these preceding 4 verses properly. Okay, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vyati tatvata tattva deham punar janma naiti mameti swarkina. So now Krishna is speaking of tattvata. In understanding me in truth, understanding me properly, not improperly, not mistakenly. So this is the benefit, that punarjanma naiti. There's not another birth, just by understanding Krishna nicely, properly. Now, although that's all it requires, Prabhupada will say in the purport, it is not so easy. That's all is required, to know Krishna properly. but there are some challenges. One who knows, because to know Krishna properly, you have to be his devotee. That's the point. Just so you're not mystified. It's not like something so mysterious that no one can ever know him properly. No, you can know him, but the requirement is to be his devotee. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So this is highlighting a couple of points. One is that we are taking another birth after leaving this body. We do. But one who knows Krishna, he does not have to. In other words, without being able to meet this qualification of knowing Krishna, we have no choice, but we will be forced to have another birth in this material world. So this is like, one of those cases where exception proves the rule. Exception proves the rule. I'm not going to explain it too much, but try to understand. So when there is an exception, that doesn't nullify the rule. It actually establishes the rule. Only when you know Krishna properly can you leave behind this cycle of birth and death, repeated birth and death. So that proves the rule that you will have repeated birth and death. You see, the rule is you will have repeated birth and death. Everybody has. But the exception is, if you know Krishna, there's no another birth. The Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. Prabhupada is referring to Sambhavami Atma Maya. Now, one who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated. So to have no misunderstanding about Krishna, the fact that he comes by his own internal energy, by his own sweet will, just to know that is something only a devotee can know. Not any devotee, not a neophyte devotee. This is a perfectional stage of devotee. He knows, that devotee knows, that Krishna descent is purely transcendental. That person is already liberated from material bondage. And therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. So this is a bit like saying that if one is able to chant the holy name in Namabhas, he is already liberated. You know what that means? That it means that only a liberated person can chant the holy name in Namabhas. You try to catch it. That if you chant the holy name in Namabhas, then that person is considered already liberated. So, but to chant the holy name in a Namabhas means you have to be liberated anyway. It's a way of telling us who is liberated. So anyway, so likewise, only a person who understands Krishna in truth doesn't take another birth. Only a person who is not subject to taking another birth is the person who can understand Krishna in truth. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. So that's the point. Because sometimes we think, well, okay, I understand Krishna is transcendental. Now, let's consider that for a second. Let's indulge in this digression for a minute. I agree. Krishna's birth is transcendental. Janma karma. But I like material life, I like nice cars, a good life. Now, the question is, what is the depth of my understanding that Krishna's appearance is transcendental? It's not having an effect on changing my life. Do you see the real understanding of Krishna's transcendence is transformative. It changes you. In Hindi you say parivartan. You are not the same person. I'll give you another interesting example. If somebody says, I saw the Yamadutas, and he tells you about it, there's a question mark now, because there's a Shastric reference. You only see the Yamadutas when you die. That means you cannot be living to tell the tale. You see the point? You can't be referring to it because you would be dead. So if you can say, I understand Krishna's transcendental nature of his appearance and his activity, now you would not be a non-devotee. Now do you see the catch? Because only a devotee can fully understand Krishna's transcendental nature of his appearance and his activity. Otherwise there's a question mark. In other words, we're not sure if your claim is substantial. In other words, you're not pulling my leg, kind of, as they say in ordinary language. Now Prabhupada refers to the yogis and impersonalists and their endeavors for liberation. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahma Jyoti of the Lord, is only partial. And there is the risk of returning to this material world. So because these people are not fully liberated, their understanding of Krishna is also questionable. Not only the understanding of a materialist, his understanding of Krishna is questionable, but even of a yogi and an impersonalist who is trying to merge into the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. Even their liberation, even their ability to understand Krishna is questionable. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body and does not run the risk of returning to this material world. There was a person here. He used to be the manager of the guest house some decades ago, and I said, he wouldn't hide the fact that he was a gunda. He was a rough person. I said, you're in Vrindavan, why don't you rectify your behavior? He said, Vrindavan huna. He said, I'm in Vrindavan, I'm good. I'm taken care of. See, he thought he doesn't have to rectify his behavior because he's in Vrindavan. Where is he going to go when he dies here? He's going to go back to Godhead. He had it calculated. He just but of course it was sad to hear because it was true. I was in England, I came back, I said, what happened? Sorry, I was about to give his name. They said he died. I said, oh. He said somebody shot him. So the ambulance took him. When he reached Faridabad, he died. So when he left Vrindavan, he died. So there's no getting around the fact that you have to change your character. You can't cheat Krishna. So he would say, that's my intention. I'm in Vrindavan. I'm okay, I'm safe. Without changing his character. So one part of knowing Krishna in truth is, Prabhupada says, number one, although Prabhupada lists, I think, two things that are part of understanding Krishna properly. Yeah, just two things. Okay. And what constitutes understanding Krishna properly? Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, they are still one and the same, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the first point. To know Krishna doesn't mean that... It's sad to hear sometimes even devotees give lectures and they make it look like Lord Narayan is different from Lord Krishna. That is not true. And that's just their sentiment, but it's also mental speculation. I say this on the authority that Prabhupada is about to quote. That this is not me against the devotees. This is Shastra against foolish speculation. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, they are still one and the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers. So that means, when people are too cavalier in their lectures, then they go wrong. As stated in the Vedas, Purusha Bodhini Upanishad, Eko Deva Nitya Leelanurakto Bhakta Vyapi Hridi Antaratma. The one, Eka, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Deva, is eternally engaged in many, many transcendental forms, in relationships with his unalloyed devotees. So, this is a fact. There's only one supreme absolute truth. There are not 2, 3 competing, 4, 5, 10. One is better. One Supreme Personality of Godhead who is engaged in unlimited pastimes with his unlimited devotees, with unlimited transcendental forms. One, there's no competition. The Vedic version is confirmed in this verse of the Gita, personally by the Lord. So that's the first thing we have to know about Krishna in truth. That I'll read Prabhupada's point again. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers. So, the fact that it's incomprehensible comes out in the lecture because one didn't understand Krishna properly in truth. So second point is to accept this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas and on the strength of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who does not and to not waste time in philosophical speculations. So that's the second point, that Krishna is one in all his transcendental forms. And the second point is to accept it on the strength of what? Not because I have the mic and you don't, and I say so. No, not like that. Because this is the Vedic statement. This is the Vedic revelation. So we have to accept it. There is one supreme absolute truth. There's not two. And we have to accept it on the basis of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's own statement. And Prabhupada is saying we also, that devotee doesn't waste time. One time I was surprised to hear one senior devotee speculating about this question. Now Prabhupada is here saying that he also doesn't waste time. In other words, he doesn't keep doubting it. He doesn't keep questioning it. Doesn't keep raising the question. Have you heard this question sometimes? How did we come from the spiritual world? Have you heard? How many times have you heard? All the time. And guess what? You're going to hear it again. Because it's a perennial. It's a bush that never dies. It keeps on, the thorns keep coming every time. But again and again, Prabhupada has said it before, that you can't ask this. You don't waste your time on this question. But again, you will faithfully come. Somebody will say, he's thinking he's asking something for the first time, never been asked before. since Lord Brahma created the universe. How did we come? Again, so don't waste time. So Prabhupada emphasizes this. He says simply by accepting this truth on faith, one can without doubt attain liberation. The Vedic version, Tatvamasi, is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the Supreme, or who says unto the Lord, "You are the same Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead," is certainly liberated instantly, and consequently his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, he becomes his devotee. He decides, okay, no more questions, no more doubts. Tattvamasi, I am yours. From here on today, my Lord, I am your servant. Ami tumhara kinkara. I am your servant. That's what it means to know Krishna in truth. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection. And this is confirmed in the following Vedic assertion. So in other words, Prabhupada has now just very nicely explained how it is knowing Krishna in truth. You don't have to take another birth, because you become a devotee of Krishna, faithful devotee. Tam eva viditvati mrityumeti na anya pantha vidyate ayanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord. Tam eva viditvati, the Supreme Personality of God. And there is no other way to achieve this perfection. Na anya pantha. So there is no other way to achieve this perfection. That there is no alternative means that anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance, and consequently he will not attain salvation. Simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey, or by interpreting the Bhagavad Gita according to mundane scholarship. Such empiric philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way attain perfection. Now, there's two wonderful references. One is from a lecture by Prabhupada in 1966 in New York. Now here the word Tattvata is very important. Tattvata is the science of Krishna and means in truth. It is not enough to know by historical facts that Krishna is born on such and such a date, in such and such place, in such and such family, and that he did such and such activities. One has to learn them in Tattvata, in truth. Then he becomes free from this bodily entanglement. How can one understand the science of Krishna? Krishna, it is explained in the 18th chapter. Krishna science can be understood by devotional service. So by default, that person is a devotee. Now, in a conversation with a disciple in Hawaii in 1974, this is very interesting. Woman devotee. Can we just have the chanting without instructions? Prabhupada, what is that? Sudama. She wants to know that should they just have the chanting without reading your books, or without instruction, or following the program? Prabhupada, but the chanting must be pure. Your guru is writing books. If you think there is no necessity to read any books, that is Guru Avagya. Do you mean to say I am writing these books every night for selling and making money? Why do you think that? Woman devotee. So there should just be chanting and reading books. So this, I think it helps to have specific references, because if there's a dispute that somebody else said something else, well, now at least there's a reference, and it's not personal between two speakers. which it shouldn't be. It should be a study of the absolute truth. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. In text 8, that the various kinds of avatars such as Purusha avatar, Guna avatar and all. So there we mentioned that the Shakti avatar, the one to whom one who is one who is empowered by the Lord. The
Shakti Avesh.
Shakti Avesh avatar. So there we mentioned that Buddha is one of them. So we consider Buddha as one of the incarnation of Lord Himself.
No, we consider him Shakti Avesh.
How it is? I do not.
Well, how do
I
you
confused.
think he's not Shakti